It used to be that we couldn't even make it through a single night without running our generator. Our fridge alone would drain our 2 deep cycle batteries in 8 hours or less. And that didn't even account for lights or running the furnace on a cold night. We wanted more flexibility than having to be plugged into a power source all the time. What we needed was an upgrade. In this first part of our 2-part solar install series, I'm going to show you the installation I did on 6 Battleborn batteries and 2 3kW Victron inverters. Just a quick disclaimer before we get too far along, I'm not a professional. This is not intended as a how-to. I'm just showing you what I did. First, we had to decide where we wanted to install some new equipment. The space behind our cargo bay here had room, so I had to take out a wall here to gain access. So even though we had space, there was still a lot of piping and extra wires back here to work around. I was able to get around the pipes, but in some cases there were 5 or 6 feet of extra wire just left coiled on the floor, and I ended up shortening a lot of it. Next, I mounted our new Victron Multiplus inverters to plywood, and then I had to wrestle them back in here to mount them on the wooden supports that were already there. That was a lot of work, and I definitely felt that one the next day. For the second part, I built a rough battery box to hold our 6 lithium-ion batteries, and then I put a piece of plywood on top of it so we could still store things on it. After removing the original lead-acid batteries from the front compartment here under the hitch, I rewired the 12-volt system to connect to the new battery bank in the cargo bay. To connect 6 lithium batteries, I built all equal-length 4-aught cables using a hammer crimper for the lugs and a heat gun to shrink wrap the crimps. All 6 of them are connected to the same positive and negative bus bars. Here I am sitting on top of the battery bank, and looking down there are bus bars for the negative side here, and over here the positive side where everything goes together. For the AC side, I shut off power to the whole house, pulled out this breaker box, removed the 50 amp cable from the back and rewired that to the inverters. Next, I ran 2 more 50 amp cables from the inverters back into our breaker box. Finally, 2 more sets of 4-aught wire connect both inverters to the bus bar. Now, when we're connected to the campground power, it just passes through a transfer switch in our inverters. When we aren't, the inverters draw power from the batteries to supply all of our AC needs. I also put a new control panel in the hallway. I had to cut a new hole and run some data cables down the wall here into the cargo bay. This provides information on battery levels and gives me a little bit of control over the inverters themselves. And I'll admit, the configuration for this wasn't super straightforward. I had to spend a lot of time on Victron's website and watching some other videos on it. But since I got it dialed in, I haven't had to revisit it. So what does all this really mean? We could now go several days just by drawing power from the batteries. We could even run our air conditioners for several hours before the batteries got low. At this point, we didn't even have to go ahead with the rest of the solar install, but we did need some way to recharge the batteries, be it running our small generator, or usually when we would just get back to a campground. Another nice benefit at this point was that we could run the entire place on just a small 15 amp connection when we were staying with friends or family. The inverters will assist that small power connection with power from the batteries, and then it'll just recharge the system overnight when we're not using as much power. So that's it for this part. See our related blog post where we'll give a list of the main components, general costs, and time involved, and make sure you hit subscribe and the notification bell so you don't miss part 2 where I install the solar panels, solar controllers, and the rest of the system. See you next time.